The Ensemble podcast is intended for professional financial advisors. All discussion is limited to publicly available information and should not be interpreted as legal, professional, or financial advice. Ensemble does not hold an AFS license nor provide any financial services. Before making investment decisions, you should obtain financial advice from a qualified financial advisor.
Hello, my name's James Wrigley. I'm a financial advisor and one of the principals of Melbourne-based financial planning firm First Financial. I've been a long-term listener and contributor to the Ensemble group and podcast, picking up some amazing nuggets of gold over the years. And through this podcast and the people that I'm able to speak to and interview, hopefully I can continue to deliver some of those nuggets of gold to you.
This episode is brought to you by Capital Group, one of the oldest and largest asset management companies in the world, managing multi-asset, equity and fixed income investment strategies for different types of investors. Since 1931, Capital Group has been singularly focused on delivering superior, consistent results for long-term investors using high-conviction portfolios, rigorous research and individual accountability.
Okay, welcome back to the podcast. I'm James Wrigley today, but the pleasure of speaking with Chris Carlin from Master Your Money Now. Now, some of you listening may have seen Chris has put up a post in the Ensemble forum thing there, the chat, asking for some questions for today's podcast, which is fantastic. So we're going to get stuck into those. But Chris, thank you for joining me. Pleasure to be speaking with you again.
Always a pleasure to speak to you, Mr. TikTok superstar James Wrigley. Thank you for the opportunity to, share what's been a interesting 12 months, that's for sure. I'm sure we'll dig into that. And very glad to hear that a lot of people are interested and I guess struggling with the same issues that I've been struggling with over the last 12 months. So glad to be able to give back to the financial planning community that's been so good to me.
Yeah. So you've just recently sold your business, which we're going to jump to very quickly. But before we do, maybe just briefly on Master Your Money Now, what that business was, who you worked with, just a brief one there, and then we'll get into the main part of today's podcast.
Yeah, so Master Your Money Now founded in July 2018 with a real emphasis on looking after millennial nurses and teachers with their finances. Based in Geelong, but we had clients Australia-wide. We were using Zoom before COVID made it famous. And just helping everyday millennials with what was really important to them. So buying their first home, protecting their loved ones, getting stuff investing so they can retire earlier and with more. And by the time, at the moment, we've got about 140 ongoing members and a team of 5, which transitioned across to now Vista Financial Group.
Yeah, nice. So quite a business that 5 years or so you're doing it on your own?
Yeah, just about 5 years.
Yep. Nice. So you mentioned Vista just there. So you've recently sold your business. Yep. Can you talk us through like what transpired to make you get to that point where you decided it was time to sell?
Yeah. So we're recording this in May 2023, and if you told me 12 months ago this is the position that I was in, I would have said that you were absolutely crazy. But it's been an interesting 12 months. There was a couple of key events happen. Firstly, I was 28th of June 2022. I was almost killed in a car crash. Just driving down a road near my house, or driven down 1,000 times before, and then a car completely ignored a stop sign, had to be going twice the limit, clean straight through my front and kept going. And half a second later, I was able to walk away from it, but half a second later would have hit my driver's side door, and I would have met my second daughter, Chelsea, who was born 6 weeks later. So something like that really messes with you. It really makes you think of, your mortality and what's actually really important to you. So, and kind of brought on a midlife crisis. I'm only 34, so hopefully it's come a little bit early. But really made me reassess, what's important and what's not. On that as well, Chelsea was born 6 weeks later. She's my second daughter. My oldest, Charlotte, is turned 2. So going from 1 to 2, certainly for me and my family, was a massive step up. 0 to 1 was easier, but I guess as the male, I know you got kids, James. It's it's easier for the male when there's only one, but when there's two and the numbers are even, then it's that was a real challenge for us and as a family. So, and yeah, in terms of where the business was at, we were in a good position. We're kind of caught between that, I guess that black hole, for lack of a better word, between a sole person operator and then being able to really expand to that, multi-advisor office and things like that. But I just got to the end of the year and I don't want to make it sound like I was like overplay it by saying, I was depressed and things like that. But I was definitely feeling it mentally. I was definitely very tired. And I think I just ran out of ideas. And a lot of the things that we set out to do, being an online advisor for millennial nurses, what were unique ideas 5 years ago were now below minimum standard, or others had moved into that space as well, social media, being online and things like that. So I just realized I got to the point that I either needed to keep growing the business or to get out where we were in, or if I just stayed sideways, there was no real benefit to myself, my team, my members, my family, if we just went sideways for a few years as we went through, I guess, the young family phase. And I didn't want to be an absent dad. I didn't want to be spending 60 hours a week and have been a burden in that front on my family as well. So we just got to December. I just said to my wife, look, I think I'm done. I think it's now time to pass this on to someone else. And she was very quick to say yes to that. So, yeah, I can definitely see, I was just juggling too many balls, James, and I knew, and I'm sure you've seen as well, and everyone listening to this has seen it. We've seen other financial planners who've sadly held on a little bit too long whilst going through tough times, especially solo operators, and it's a terrible outcome for members and the financial planners' families and everyone else. So I didn't want to be like that. I knew my limits. I knew I'd been exceeding my limits. I knew I just couldn't grow it anymore. And so it was time to give it to someone else who had the time, the resources, the energy to take Master Your Money Now to the next level and ultimately make it better. So that was the process to get to where we are. And
Gotcha.
and that's and things are good.
So you're talking about you're stuck in that black hole of being a single operator. Do you take on other advisors or try and grow it? Did you give any thought whilst you were going through that process to taking on a business partner of sorts, or it was you were set on passing over the whole business to someone else?
Yeah, so I think there does need to be one boss, one CEO.
Yeah.
And so, I don't think a business partner was the right move for me. And also, I guess the other part as well, when we set out the intention in December to sell the business, it was with the intention that we'll see out the year in Australia, but then move back to New Zealand to be closer to my wife's family and to get that much needed family support. And so obviously, while I'm in New Zealand, I can't be an advisor. So that one wasn't an option for me. Or at least as an advisor role, I could have done a non-advisor role. But that wasn't an option for me. So look, considered it. But at that stage, no, I didn't think it was the right move for me personally.
Gotcha. So are you in New Zealand now, or you're thinking of going at the end of the year? What's that New Zealand comment?
Yeah, so the intention was when we put it on that we're going to move to New Zealand 2024. I'm still in Geelong at the moment, but
2024.
we actually I actually spent a month in New Zealand in March, which was after we're in exclusive negotiations with Tyson at that point, and just going through the legal process. But we spent a month in New Zealand, and it was actually like, this is economically, New Zealand is in a lot of trouble.
Right.
And we just realised we could not be here as much as we want to be near family. When you can't feed a family of $400 to $500 a week, nurses are paid about 50% less than what they are in Australia. 10% of all nurses have left New Zealand to come to Australia in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
There's no financial planning roles I could see above 80 grand. And yet property prices are higher and interest rates are in the 7s and 8s as we're speaking. So it was just not going to work. So we did the month there and went, oh, no, we're not going to go to Australia. So we're not going to move to New Zealand. We're crossing that one out. So, yeah, so fully had to go back with Tyson on that one. And thankfully he said, well, look, I'd really be open to staying on. So we're certainly discussing that. And I guess, taking the time to figure out what my next steps is going to be and give myself time to figure out what the next steps are going to be and go from there.
So maybe talk us through the sale itself. So, how do you sell a financial planning business? Like, I work in a business, as you said, with multiple partners. So I'm as far away from being a solo practitioner as you can possibly be. How do you do it? Where do you even start? And what does the process look like?
Yeah, so I did mine through a broker. I actually received an email from Growth Focus. I think like most financial planners, I'm on a couple of different email newsletters for businesses for sale. I was actually looking at a small business for sale actually that they had, and called them up, and they said at the time it was sold. I was like, okay, fair enough. Well, while I've got you, this is my numbers. This is what I'm thinking. What do you think is worth? And I had an idea what it was worth in my head, and that which was, I said that was realistic. If anything was slightly under, or was slightly under in the end. And so, like, here's the process, away you go. So once I had the chat to the wife and felt, yep, this was the right thing to do, I decided that selling was, we went through the process, and the broker went through that. So went through, like I said, Growth Focus, Stephen Fine, Matt Sweeney, pretty much took care of the whole process, which is great. So firstly, it was getting all the data ready, going through your clients, making sure what your spreadsheets that we've all got matches what's actually on the revenue reports, things like that. So that was very much an administration process to put together the memorandum for the business, and then that memorandum and I guess the for sale sign was put on the website. If you go on a Growth Focus website, you can still see I believe my ad's still there in the sold section, so you can take a look at this afterwards. But so they managed the relationships and the introductions. So, and it was very well received. We had 40 inquiries, 5 or 6 interviews, and all those people wanted different things, which was quite an eye opener as well, and had different feedback on the business as well. So went through that process. And then once we verbally agreed to who we wanted to go through, it was then a legal process, and that legal getting the contracts done did take a little bit longer. But at the end of the day, like, to go from to agreeing to proceed in like December 15 and then settling on April 15th, so I mean 4 months, and 2 months of that was the legal process. Like it was a pretty fast. I was really surprised how quickly that it all happened. So, that was
nice.
Yeah, so it was all through the brokers, and they had the networks, the opportunities, and made sure that it wasn't just about the best price, but make sure I had the best fit for myself and my clients, and that cultural fit as well.
So the business that you'd built up, did you build that from zero? Did you buy any client bases along the way that some people do, or it was all from scratch?
All from scratch. Coming from ANZ, 1 or 2 clients followed me. Actually, a couple more insurance-only clients followed me. But everything was through primary referral partners and social media marketing. Gotcha. That's how we're able to grow the business to where it was.
Yeah, nice. Yep. And so, what's life like for you now? So you're an employed advisor working with your same clients that you sold into the business. Are you still working with them? Like, what's life like for you now?
Yeah, no, exactly it. It's I'm in the privileged position where I can get to choose what I want to do next. And so I'm looking after my existing clients and going to be doing a bit of marketing on the side as well, which is what I enjoy. So really to be able to just focus on the things that I enjoy, which is financial advice and doing a bit of marketing, and not worrying about all the other stuff. Thankfully, I've given up the mortgage broking side of things. We've got a great guy, Shane, that looks after that. Thank heavens. because that was 2-3 days a week. Don't have to manage staff. Don't have to do all the yucky stuff. Look, I've got a good administration and paraplanning team with Natasha and Mary that looks after me there. It's just to go able to clear the headspace and just focus on what I enjoy doing is I'm really surprised how much I've enjoyed it and how much I've really enjoyed just being an advisor again. And like I said, I sold this with the intention of exiting at the end of the year, but Tyson and the new arrangements is definitely being quite an appealing for me to stay on. So that's what we're working through as a family as to what our next moves will be and what that looks like, what's actually important and what's not. But I'm really loving just the simplicity of being an advisor. I love running my own business, don't get me wrong. I absolutely loved what we built and I was very successful, but I know what it takes to build a successful financial planning practice. It's a lot of blood, sweat and tears and long hours. And I just don't have that anymore at this present point in time. And I forgot how easy it is to be an advisor when you've got an established book and you're not really fighting hard to bring in clients.
Yeah. And so what's on the family front, the home front outside of work? So it sounds like a big driver of why you went down the selling the business route was to do with maybe more important things outside of work. Yeah. How's that? It might only be early days, but how's that playing out for you?
It's very nice to be able to walk away at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock and not have to turn on the computer again until the next day. I don't have to do weekends. I don't have to do any nights. To be able to fit it back into the proverbial 9 to 5 has been good. And I'm still able to get some flexibility as well. Like one of the things that I do is I take my eldest daughter, Charlotte, to Little Kickers, which is soccer training, all these 2-year-olds running around causing chaos. So Thursday mornings, I'm not in the office till midday because that's something that's really important to me, is to be able to take her and eventually Chelsea when she's old enough to Little Kickers. So, so I've still got some flexibility and that's, which is good. And like I said, and still getting a salary as well. So it's all, at the moment, it's all positives. I haven't really come across any negatives so far.
So next bit that I wanted to tackle, there were some questions from the ensemble, I guess, community. Before we move on to that, was there anything else you wanted to add in the first half of our podcast around the sale and why and how?
I think the main thing is you've got options, and I think sometimes, like I said, I couldn't get over how simple the process was. And there's been a lot of talk about, you got to spend 12 months to get your book ready and all this kind of stuff. No, I didn't do any of that. Like I said, I went from having the idea to settlement within 4 months. So that's how quickly it can move. And also don't assume what people want as well. I think that was one of the big eye-openers for me, was that even though on paper the offers were, like the 5 or 6 people that we interviewed and put in offers were all virtually identical, they all wanted different things. Like some people wanted me to stay on, a couple of people made it clear they didn't want me to stay on. Some people wanted to keep the Master Your Money Now brand, some people didn't. Some people want to keep our offers, some people did not. Those little nuances really, you don't think of it at the time, but they do actually make a difference in the final offer. So I'm really don't assume what people want. Even the fact that my client base is definitely a lower fee paying client base, which some people I've definitely seen commented think is a negative. But as a couple pointed out, well, it means there's a lot of upside, and particularly with the millennial client base as well. I'm not sure if you could say the same about a retiree base, but for a millennial client base, there's plenty of upside as they grow their wealth and move into the future. Whereas a fully priced client base, that are currently being charged 8, 12, 15 grand, whatever it might be, there's very little scope for them to go higher. So there's so many different opinions. Again, don't assume what you've built. Don't make unnecessary and negative assumptions about what your business is, because there's someone out there that wants what you want, and like I said, there's there's so many options out there, and if you're able to take that, take profit, so to speak, and use that money to either invest and generate X amount of dollars, or use it to buy. We'll probably use ours to, put a deposit on a family home. We've been renting for the last few years because that's the only option we could have done with a young family and being self-employed, but, and still have a job on the other side as well. There's a lot of pros. Yes, there's some negatives, but on the whole, there's a lot of pros for it. And I'd be very open. I would encourage people to at least have the conversation about what their options are, because it surprised me what the options were. And I think it would surprise a lot of people out there as well.
You sound like a big advocate for it. So that kind of leads into the first question from the Ensemble community. So Andrea Jenkins asked, what are the pros and cons of going back to being an employee?
The pros, I guess it all depends where you go back and what you want to do. But certainly the pros are obviously a guaranteed salary. That's good. I did have that with Master Your Money Now for the last couple of years, but it's good to get back to just a salary, especially being in a bigger team as well, to not have to do everything. It's been great to say, that problem. Oh, wait, that's not my problem anymore. I can pass it off to Tyson or someone else. So that's definitely been a good feeling. The negatives, again, it depends where you go. I guess the big one I think a lot of people have is that what I refer to loss of creative control. But thankfully, Tyson has given me a lot of leash to be able to, and wants me to continue doing a few of the things I've been doing with, and also incorporate that into Vista as well. So he really wants to take my strengths and put that into the business. So, but I acknowledge that for some people, that's not a consideration, especially if you're moving into an established business with with processes, for example, in marketing, in my case. So, that would be one thing. And I know that's a big thing for some people, losing that creative control and having a boss and things like that. And dare I say it, having to put down the ego, for lack of a better word, and submit to someone else. Like, that's a big thing for a lot of people. So to be able to not have to, a pro is to not have to worry about making all the decisions for me and where I'm at right now is a really big thing for me.
Yeah.
And a really big for me.
Andrew Courtney had a couple of questions. The first one was, what valuation method did you use, and was the client base segmented in terms of that valuation? Can you talk through the valuation method?
Yeah. So I think the two valuation methods out there are still the recurring revenue and EBITDA. For me, EBITDA was not got that acronym right. EBITDA wasn't a good valuation for me, so we did buy recurring model. My client base wasn't segmented by fees; it was segmented by revenue type. So advisor service fees, insurance, and mortgage revenue. So there was slightly different valuations on those three revenue streams.
Yeah.
But it wasn't segmented in terms of client value. I think some may have tried, but they didn't get through to the interview stage. So no, it was taken as a whole, just segmented by revenue type.
Yeah.
And was there a second part to that question?
Yeah. So he had a second question. So you answered both parts of the question.
Cool,
thanks.
cool.
But he did have a second question. And so what is it about the business that you sold to that attracted you to them most? So as you said, you had 5 different interviews. What was it about the final one that attracted you most?
Yeah, I think for me, Tyson, similar boat to where I was at. He's 2 years older than me. He's got one child, but also he grew up near Geelong, a place called Colac, which is about 30 minutes down the road. Yep. And I refer to it as country values. And I just felt we shared those country values, the importance of looking after a client. We use the phrase shearing the sheep, not skinning it. Charge them fairly, profitably, but fairly, and not overcharging clients. And just having, and I think the team as well at Vista, a lot of them are in their 30s, so a similar demographic. Yeah, it was really a cultural fit that I felt that, Tyson for me was very closely aligned to Master Your Money Now in terms of cultural. Very different client base. They're very much an established high net wealth, predominantly retiree client based, whereas obviously we're millennials, but from a cultural perspective, we felt that was by that was for me the biggest driver. It was a good fit. And like a couple of months in, my team has settled in very well with Vista, and I think vice versa as well, which just reinforces that, culturally, I think it was the key thing that's fit in. Not saying the other offers or people would, bad people or anything ridiculous like that. Absolutely not. They had impressive businesses, but just a culture that probably just didn't 100% align with what we've got with Vista here. So, like I said, it goes back to that point. Everything's a little bit different.
And does Vista, I haven't looked up Vista's website, does Vista have multiple advisors, or is that a single kind of advisor business?
No, so they've got Tyson, an aged care specialist, Sonia, and an up-and-coming advisor called Patrick. I hope it's Chip or Crip. No, Patrick Chip, I'm pretty sure. I'm sorry, Patrick. But definitely remember that name. He's 28 and on the rise. He's got a phenomenal future ahead of him. To be able to mentor him on a bit of social media and advising stuff, I'm really excited about. So we've got 3 on that side, plus a mortgage broker, and then we had myself and Sockley. So now we'll have 5 advisors and 1 mortgage broker. Very, very good team. And one we can having conversations about scaling and so forth.
Okay. Adele Martin had a few questions for you, and you commented underneath her post saying, bringing on the tough questions, but I don't think they're too tough. So we'll get into Adele's questions. So the first one that she asked was, would you do anything differently if you were starting again now?
Yeah, I pondered that question a lot on a couple of different levels. Firstly, I definitely wouldn't start it today what I did 5 years ago, because the world has changed in the last 5 years. And as I said before, like in 2018 when I started, being an online advisor was a real competitive edge. Now it's below minimum standard. There was no advisors in the nursing space when I started. Now there's a few more, 4 or 5. I know Dell's done a little bit in that space. Grant Miller's another guy who I know does nurses, and quite a few more in that allied health professional space, which generally encapsulate nurses. So you've got to build a business that's right for the times. And like I said, as I said before, I was out of ideas as to what I think a practice should look like for the next 5 years. I fully admit that. So I probably would do some things. I would start a probably different business to what I've got now if I was to start from scratch again. So
do you mean working with a different type of client, do you mean?
Potentially, yeah. Potentially different clients, different ways of doing things. I said, I'm not sure what that looks like, but what was an edge in 2018 is, well, in a lot of ways below minimum standard in 2023. So that's why people like, again, Patrick, like I said before, who's got ideas and knows what the next generation wants. That's where, what's going to take to grow the businesses over the next 5 years will be completely different to what the previous 5 years looks like. So,
fair enough.
That's what I do different there. In terms of mastering money now, and I've, again, thought about Adele's question a lot. I did struggle with ideas, but definitely 2 things. Firstly, I should have niched much quicker. It took me about 2 years to go down the nurses path. And I remember not listening to some very good wisdom, both inside and outside of the financial planning community, about the importance of niching. I thought that would limit my audience, but it definitely didn't. It opened up far more doors when people were like, oh, you're a advisor for nurses. It got opened up so much more doors than just being an advisor. Like even speaking to a referral partner, I'll be like, I'm just a financial planner. Kind of like, all right, I'm not sure which clients, we'll see what happens. Of course, nothing ever happened. The moment you say that you're a financial planner for nurses, clients are like, oh, I know a nurse. I'll send them straight to you that way. That gets your foot in the door. You look after a couple of nurses. Then they're like, oh, do you look after teachers as well? Yep, great, fantastic. And that just opens the door that way. So definitely niching is I'm a big advocate for now. After being a significant detractor 5 years ago, I was definitely wrong. You need to be niching. Yep. The second thing, and this sounds like a silly thing, but it's a really important one, is that I would have got a separate work phone. I think I've still got my personal phone here, which has got both. My wife messaging me and my clients messaged me on the same phone at the same time, and that was a huge mistake. I needed to have a separate work phone. Because even now, like, and that's just a little thing, but even when I'm selling the business, like, should I decide to leave, I've got to actually, can't take the phone with me. So I've got to start from scratch there. So I mean, that's a small thing, but it actually is a big thing. And also stops you from, because I know we're all at 9 p.m. checking our phones in front of the telly, winding down. You want to have a personal phone for that, not one that's got access to your work emails and work texts and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
so there's a few things I would definitely do differently.
What were the best bits of being a solo owner? So what did you enjoy most, and what was the hardest?
The part that I enjoyed the most was creative control. To be able to execute my ideas and have, I guess, leave my voice on how I think advice should be, and which was ultimately helping my mates with their finances, a lot of which probably would have not been serviced if by most of the community, financial planning community. That's the part that I really loved. I met so many great people, networked, had great opportunities. Some were fantastic and then weren't, and then some were just rubbish from day one. But it's been a roller coaster ride. And you don't say you love every moment, because there's a few moments, especially, I'll go skip the hardest part, to skip that part. It's definitely letting go of staff. We've had to do that a couple of times. That sucks. Particularly one or two of them were actually friends of mine as well. Having to let them go was, they were dark days.
That would have been rough, yeah.
They were rough, yeah. But when it comes to, letting staff go or taking the whole business down with you, like those sort of conversations are just, that's not cool. So that's definitely the hard part. And but I mean, like I said, it's been a hell of a roller coaster, and glad to be stepping off the roller coaster, but thoroughly enjoyed the experience. I've met so many people, got so many stories to tell from it, and so many opportunities that I would not have had, I think, if I was a PAYG employee only. So love my time, love what I did, but that season's over. I've got to accept that, which is what I am doing counselling for, amongst other things. Accept that career and long hours of the office are just no longer my priority anymore.
Yeah. And Adele's final question was about taking on a business partner, but kind of tackled that a little earlier in the conversation. So thanks, Adele, for your few questions. Triona Thompson, hopefully I've pronounced your name correctly. Apologies if I haven't. Just an interesting question, which was, how did you negotiate your salary? So going from being a business owner, you would have paid yourself a salary and hopefully there's some business profits. But as a PAYG employee, how did you negotiate your salary?
Yeah, great question. And again, I go back to my previous point that my intention was only to stay for 6 months and then leave. So look, I went a little bit low on my salary. My salary right now is a nominal salary, which I'm totally okay with, because I got a very good sale price for the business. So I think that's the first point I made, is don't try and if you are getting a good price for the sale of your business, don't go overs on your salary expectations, especially during that responsibility period, which for me is 12 months. Taking a step back, usually it's either 12 months or 24 months. You get your first payment, and the next payment in 12 months, depends what's left of the business and so forth. Sometimes it's 24 months for some people. So, so for the first 12 months for me, my salary would probably be a little bit low what the market's paying. And I'm totally okay with that because, again, I've got a very good payment. And I didn't want to put that payment at risk just to get an extra, tens of 10,000 or whatever it might be.
Salary,
exactly, to get the salary. So, and again, what does that look like in 2024? On the assumption I stay under Vista, which is looking more likely. That's a conversation I'm having with Tyson, of course, but also my family as well, and tossing up, for example, well, do I ask for a full-time salary, or do I go back and say, hey, I only want 4 days a week, therefore I'm only going to take a lower salary. I know if I have a full, extreme example, 300K salary, I'm not asking for that, Tyson, don't worry. But, I've got to bring in probably $1 million worth of client revenue every year. Like, to do that, you need 60 hours a week to do that. Is that the right thing for my family right now? It's probably not. So I'm probably going to be in a season where, I will be at this stage probably thinking that I'll take a lower salary just so I can have a bit more work-life balance. But everyone's in a different position, and
that's something that's going to change over time too. Like you're wanting to spend time with your kids whilst they're really young. They'll start school. They'll eventually finish school. Like you're only in your 30s, so that, there's plenty of time ahead of you, and that can change over time.
I used to be very experienced. Because how old are your kids, James?
9 and nearly 6. So grade 4 and grade
6.
prep. So
so you're about 8 years ahead of me. So I mean, I have heard they're a bit easier at that age. So maybe at that time I'll go back to full-time asking and doing those longer hours to get the higher wage. So
I had another question for you. This wasn't one that was in the in that community post there. But it's something I thought of as we've been speaking. How did you tell your clients about you selling the business, and how did they take it?
Yeah, so we sent out a video to them where I explained the reasons why I sold the business, and I think because it's a millennial client base, they were very understanding of where I'm at and things like that. They were definitely very reassured that I'm staying for the rest of the year. I think that's a big one as well. I think it might have been quite different if I said 90 days I'm leaving, goodbye. Yeah. So I'm glad I'm staying with someone that wanted me to stay long term. So, and maybe taking a step back for those who are thinking of selling their business, don't wait until the last moment when you're done. You don't want to do advice anymore to sell it. You need to give yourself a year or two. We've got a year or two of energy left before selling, so you can do that transition as smoothly as possible. So, but yeah, we did a video out, and like I said, once the clients understood that, I'm staying around for the rest of the year, and at this stage looking likely I'll stay on, ultimately for them, it's and also that their fees are not going to change as well. That definitely came up a few times. Yep. They were pretty happy to, ultimately for them it was just a name change. Yeah. And they were pretty comfortable with that. So happy days.
Yeah. And do you think, so I've had a few conversations with other people around, is it really tough to just be a solo advisor running your own business? Do you think the world that we operate in now in financial advice makes that difficult to be on your own? There is a bit of a safety in numbers kind of element to the world that we live in at the moment? Or do you think it's still doable on your own?
It's doable until things go wrong.
Yeah.
And that's, look, we all, I'm not sure exactly if you started as a solo operator, James, but I think a lot of people started as solo operators. I've got no issue starting there or being there, but I don't think you want to finish there. Yeah. And like for me, we had a second advisor. We've had mortgage brokers on and off. So we had a bit of team when that was going well. That was really good for me. But we didn't get that final push to be able to keep that consistently and have more than myself and one other advisor. So I think that's going to be a big shift over the next 5 years, that especially as licensee fees go and PI and all that kind of stuff gets higher and higher and higher, we're going to see more consolidation in the industry. That's probably, if I get my crystal ball out, I think that's going to be one of the big changes. So yeah, I do think that we will be having these conversations more and more. And also as the economy tightens up as well, and there's potentially for certain segments, less opportunities to obtain clients as well. But I do think that you need to have a plan to either scale up quickly, so it's not just you, or it's or you've got a plan to merge with someone else. Because again, going back to the car crash that I had, like at the end of the day, and one big reason, the thing that always play in my mind is that if I, heaven forbid, died in that car crash or was TPD'd or whatever, there would have been no one that would have had either both the skill sets and the motivation to be able to sell the business. My wife wouldn't have a clue. The staff wouldn't know what to do. The licensee would have helped a little bit, but ultimately, if ever things go wrong, like I've got, my family would have walked away with nothing, but now they will have, a very significant lump sum that's going to set up my wife and I's future, my kids' future, and potentially my children's children as well. So that's a real motivator that was a real motivator to sell the business, because what they say, a bird in the hand is worth much more than two in the bush.
Yeah. And I think just by the questions and the engagement that you're posting, you only put it up a few days ago on Ensemble there, that the number of people that either asked questions or commented saying they're looking forward to the episode, is a sense check on whether you're a business on the acquiring side or if you're a solo operator on the selling side. There's a lot of interest in this topic at the moment. So
definitely.
Thank you for putting your hand up to be part of it and joining me on the podcast. Was there any final comments or anything extra that you want to add as we kind of round out the episode today?
Yeah, I'll just give a very quick shout out, and I promised I would because I spoke to him before, by my legal person, William Atto, Legal Made Easy. Definitely recommend him. He was fantastic throughout the process. The legal process is it's a tough process because it does sadly makes you think the worst of everyone. It's not fun, but Will made that process so easy. So I promised him a shout out. So I've just quickly squeezed that one in. But again, like I said before, as I said in my when I did my roadshow tour for the AFA back in 2020, just before COVID, ironically, no one got to their deathbed and regretted not spending more time at the office. They wanted to spend more time with their family. They want to spend more time with their kids. They want to spend more time with themselves. And whilst I absolutely believe in, we're professionals, we work hard, and we get fantastically rewarded for that, we are ultimately humans as well. And particularly, I've been open about my struggles with mental health, and I said I'm looking forward to this year. One of my goals is actually to get my head right and do the work and spend time with professionals and non-professionals to work on some of the things that I'm working through, both related to the sale and unrelated to the sale. You've got to look after yourself first, because a good you, it's a better advisor, a better spouse, a better parent. You've got to look after you first, and there's nothing wrong with accepting. If you are in a similar position to me, there's absolutely nothing wrong with saying I've hit my limit and I just can't do it anymore. You'd much rather you have that conversation and take the 6 months or whatever it is that it takes, 4 to 6 months it takes to sell your business, rather than just ignore the signs, ignore the limits, and everything just crash and burns.
Yep.
And you are in a market where you've got so many options. So look after yourself, have a chat to myself or Growth Focus or plenty other brokers, or Insomnal. It's a great financial planning community. And again, I've said it before, I'll say it again, the financial planning community is a real camaraderie, is a real family feel. And the amount of information that I have gained from advisors, I've been in the industry now 12 years, the amount of information that have been given me from advisors has been phenomenal for me. So to have this opportunity to be able to give back a little bit to the financial planning community is phenomenal. So thank you again, James, for the opportunity. Thank you to Insomnal as well for the opportunities. Thank you everyone for the questions, and hopefully it gives you food for thought about your options. And I hope you do what's best for yourselves, your families, and your members as well. Wish you all the best.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for joining me. So if anyone wants to reach out to Chris, he's on the Ensemble platform there. You can find him, or on LinkedIn, Instagram as well. You'll be able to find him. We'll put some links to different places in the show notes. But Chris, thanks again for joining me. Really great chat. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, James.